Okay, this is week 3 of the 13-week fiscal program for American descendants of slavery. And my name is Chief Alligator. We have Chief Quietwater as well as Chief Pico. And I will be starting with the reading of the 12 steps for American descendants of slavery. And we focus more so on that first letter of the acronym ADOS, which is American. Step 1, learn about the estate or estates your family originated from. Step 2, who established that estate? Step 3, what nation and confederacy had jurisdiction over that area prior to the European? Step 4, ask all nonprofit organizations you attend what's your position on reparations. Step 5, they either support it or they don't. No support, no money. However, if they support it, then immediately children and adults need weekly classes free of charge about steps 1, 2, 3, and field trips to ADOS landmarks in that city, county, and state. Step 6, don't support European holidays for the remainder of the 13-week time frame. Step 7, avoid spending money with any small business that doesn't hire your people, gas stations, nail salons, subways, etc. Step 8, all businesses need operating cash. Spend money with American Black businesses. Step 9, all other groups rely on our energy and operating cash to survive. Set the trends of making other groups follow our lead and support our clubs, services, products, and entertainment. Step 10, the US government is bankrupt. The Federal Reserve prints money, i.e. quantitative easing. It also burns money, i.e. quantitative tightening. The US dollar hasn't been backed by gold since Richard Nixon in 1971, the Gold Standard Act. The government operates off the full faith of its citizens to pay debt and taxes. American descendants of slavery no longer have faith in the US government. This is why financial support will be altered, stopped, and redirected. Step 11, teach your kids 1 hour a day about their history on this land. A, have them learn about a Black inventor. B, have them know about our heroes. C, they should know the European that conquered the estate you live in. D, they should know the nation of people prior to European invasion, militarily and culturally. Step 12, practicing these steps will educate us on the land we're claiming, America, and attaches us to the history and laws of the US government. Every estate American descendants of slavery live in should have steps 1, 2, and 3 advertised via social media, radio, and newspaper. This in 13 weeks, one fiscal quarter, will bring us together for our common cause. I'll make one amendment under step 11, subsection A. Need to change that to American inventor versus Black inventor. With that being said, once again, I'm Chief Alligator. I will also be doing the American inventor. Today, the American inventor will be Frederick Jones. He was born on May 17th, 1893, and he died February 21st, 1961. He was an entrepreneur and co-founder of Thermo King. Thermo King is a refrigeration company that's still in business today. Frederick Jones has more than 40 patents in the field of refrigeration. The one invention that I'm going to pick out of the over 40 that he's added to the world to benefit from in refrigeration is the thermostat and temperature control system. That federal patent number is 2926005, and that's going to be February 23rd, 1960. And so the thermostat and temperature control, basically, if I explain that, everybody has a refrigerator. So you wonder why your freezer section freezes and the refrigerator section doesn't freeze. It's due to Frederick Jones. And that's the American inventor.
Okay.
So at this point, we'll have Chief Pico. You're going to do the legal definitions. Okay.
All right, Chief Pico here. For the first legal definition, we have American. American is basically a native of America. Number 2, we have descendants. that is one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number three, we have slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number four, we have prisoner of war, POW. This is a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number five, we have school, any institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number six, we have an enlightening experience. Also for this week's Dr. Woodson quote, I'll be reciting quote number 4. If the Negro could abandon the idea of leadership and instead stimulate a larger number of the race to take up definite tasks and sacrifice their time and energy in doing these things efficiently, the race might accomplish something. This needs workers, not leaders. Such workers will solve the problems which race leaders talk about and raise money to enable them to talk more and more about it.
All right, I greatly appreciate it. And if you could just clarify on your last legal definition, you gave the definition, but not the word.
Okay. The word was education, and that is an enlightening experience. So number 6 was education and enlightening experience.
Gotcha. And we are going to have Chief Quietwater.
Okay. I will be doing the maroon historical points. So number 1, was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law? Number 2, providing unity and a strong defense came first. Number 3, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number 4, maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. Number 5, maroons knew their European enemies' language, defenses, and plans.
Okay. And you want to share your stream, Chief Pico, or do you want me to share mine?
I'll go ahead and share my screen, make sure. Get it right here. Okay, perfect. All right. Can you all see?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Now, since last week we left off paragraph 3, it says in confidence in each other on the Militia Act. So I'm trying to see exactly where we might have left off. Let me see.
I see it.
You see it?
Right here. Can you see my mouse?
Oh shoot, hold on. Because it's got me sharing the screen.
No problem. Okay, you see where your mouse is?
Uh-huh.
Come to the left on that same sentence.
Same sentence here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then drop down just a little bit. Boom, there you go, right there.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'll go ahead and start here. Let me try to find the exact, because yeah, this is a pretty long sentence. I'll just start and thereby give them confidence.
Okay.
All right. And thereby give them confidence in each other. They cannot assemble to opposite the enemy without the utmost danger of opposing themselves to confusion and destruction. And whereas the voluntary assembling of great bodies of armed men from different parts of the province on any occasional alarm, whether true or false, as to late have happened, without call or authority from the government. I know last week we were just pretty much discussing them voting this into their bill or their act as far as the state of, I believe this is Pennsylvania. It seems here what I just read that they are kind of fearful of the gathering of armed Europeans for these alarms, whether it be false or true, as it states here. And that kind of rings a bell to something that we see a lot of with them, storming Capitol buildings or storming these government sanctioned buildings with arms. And we usually see them pretty much welcomed in with no type of resistance from any officers. We see it when everybody first went on lockdown in regards to, not being able to go out freely where they wanted to. We saw them storm different buildings, these Europeans, and with arms, with weapons, and not be met with any force. So it seems like this has been something they were fearful of prior to, but we see that this is something that has not been addressed in today as far as our current year.
Okay. I'll build on that. Where we, on the part where it says, if we go up and it says, instructed and disciplined under proper officers with suitable and legal authority, representing with all that unless measures of this kind are taken so as to unite them together, subject them to due command, and thereby give them confidence in each other, they cannot assemble to oppose the enemy. I'm hearing structure and organization, right? And we can't, as prisoners of war, aka Black, Afro-American, Negro, colored, people of color, whatever adjective that they choose to throw at us or name us like we're some type of pet in today's world, we cannot get around this natural law, this law of organizing an armed defense. We can't get around this, because what we're seeing here is the foundation, the ground floor of what gave them confidence. Their government said, okay, we're going to give you structure. You're going to have military officers, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to teach you how to organize and how to strategically attack and defend. We don't have it. We don't have it. And not only do we not have it, Chief Pico, what's frustrating to me personally is we don't like to talk about it. We think that we're the only group of people. And here's what's interesting. We can organize and learn offense and defense for the United States government's military. Mm-hmm. But we're the only group of people on planet Earth that are not supposed to organize and learn offense and defense to protect our kids, our wives, our cousins, our aunts, our uncles. And it makes no sense, but it does make sense as to why we're in last place within the world and why we're the most unorganized, because we can't even get this basic concept, this basic natural law. We won't adhere to it, which is self-preservation of life.
Correct. Right.
I totally agree with both of you. It is very, very basic, and they have it down to a T, basically, in regards to how they basically, come together to defend against the enemy, basically. To defend. Definitely agree with both of you.
If I can throw out one more sentence in here that Chief Pico read, where it says, and whereas, if you come a little bit to the right, Chief Pico.
Oh, yeah, right here.
And whereas the voluntary assembling of great bodies of armed men from different parts of the province on any occasional alarm, whether true or false, as of late have happened without call or authority from the government. So what they're saying is,
basically, whether they're right or wrong,
they're
going to come together.
And they're coming from all over so you could be 100 miles away. When they get that Batman signal, they're coming.
Yeah.
And they're going to be all on one accord.
Correct. No matter what, like you said, no matter if it's a false alarm or just, happenstance, it doesn't matter. They're all coming because, they're on one accord, like you said, Chief Quietwater.
Right. And it looks like that next sentence kind of displays that once we continue.
Correct. And without due order and direction among themselves may be attended with danger to our neighboring Indian friends and allies, as well as to the internal peace of the province. So pretty much like you said, without any direction from the government, but there is direction within itself. Like you said, there is structure. So it may not be from something that was delegated strictly from the government, but they do have a structure within themselves to say, hey, when this is happening, everybody's going to come together and we're going to make sure we take care of whatever needs to be taken care of.
Right.
I like how they, just to interject real quick, I like how they threw in the adjective and put in Indian friends. So we can already see the wordplay.
Mhm.
They think, and this is really just boils down to straightening. They think they can call you whatever they want to call you. And so what we have to get in the habit of doing is checking them, right,
Correct.
on their mouthpiece and say, no, this is what I'm recognized as, right? You don't get a chance to dictate to me who I am.
Correct. Because like you said before, what label us as blacks, Afro Americans, African Americans, no, Americans. Like I said here,
Right.
neighboring Indian friends, they've already, as Chief Alligator pointed out, are already starting the reclassification process. They aren't even quote unquote US citizens at this point.
Right.
So for them to automatically, change the name of the actual Americans shows that arrogance, shows that pretty much disregard um, for pretty much anybody, and they're going to take whatever they feel they need to take.
Mhm.
I'll go ahead and continue here. And whereas the governor had frequently recommended it to the assembly that it preparing and passing a law for such purposes, they should have a due regard to scrupulous and tender consciences, which cannot be done where compulsive means are used to force men into military service. Therefore, as we represent all the people of the province and are composed of members of different religious persuasions, we do not think it reasonable that any should, through a want of legal power, be in the least restrained from doing what they judge it their duty to do for their own security and the public good. So let me see, I'm gonna go back here. So it seems like they're still on the fence about making it almost like a necessity that you join arms whenever you're called upon. It seems like they're still having that that discussion of whether it'll be pretty much voluntary or something that is a necessity for all men to pretty much take up arms to protect whatever they need to protect during this time for security measures. I know prior we was reading that the Quakers had their religious beliefs on them taking up arms, but they weren't opposed to others if they believe it to be needed. So it seems here like they just kind of are reiterating that piece where they are still trying to find I guess, the right path to make sure that people are able to protect themselves, or the European is able to protect themselves, without making it a necessity or something that's required.
Mhm.
I'll build on that. If you go back to the first sentence you started at where it says and, yep, right there. Okay, and it says, and whereas the governor have frequently recommended it to the assembly. So the governor's been recommending it to the political body
Mhm.
that in preparing and passing a law for such purposes, they should have a due regard to scrupulous and tender consciousness. Here we go, right here, which cannot be done where compulsive means are used to force men in the military service.
Mhm.
What I'm taking from that is the governor is basically saying there's no law for me to tell you to protect yourself.
Mhm.
Right.
That's common. Like we can't
That's
give you a
natural
law.
law. Yeah.
Right.
We can't give you a law to do that. Now
Right.
let's reverse that to prisoners of war.
Mm.
The self law, the first law of nature is self-preservation. Why
Correct.
do we avoid this?
Right.
Why do we
And
like
I mean,
there's no
it's
law? Like,
very basic, right? It's
Mhm.
very basic. It's our right. And we just casually just push it away, push it away, push it away. Why? I have no clue. Like we discussed before, we just can't get all on the same page, but it's very basic. Everyone else knows this and practices this, but we just conveniently just act like that is not the first law of preservation.
Correct. Correct. Even nature has that, if
Right.
a antelope or something is about to be eaten, or their family, they're going to do everything they can to, preserve
Exactly.
their life as well as their family life. So why aren't we as a people? Like, what is I guess the thing that's keeping us back from actually acting on that?
And then the fact that when we do show force, they use that against us, and we allow them to. We allow them to use that against us.
Can you highlight this part, Chief Pico, right up under that where it says, we do not think it reasonable that any should, through a want of legal powers, to be in the least restrained from doing what they judge it their duty to do for their own security and the public good. And tying into what Chief Quietwater just said, why is it so hard for us to practice natural law, which is self-preservation? I'm going to say, unfortunately, it's due to bad leadership from this group. And what I mean bad leadership, I mean the people who are put in front of us as leaders, they're religious people. They're not military. So what ends up happening is we always end up getting this pie in the sky ideal, when in reality,
we're waiting.
Okay. Where did we break up, just so we can stay in line? What's the last thing you heard?
We broke up after you made your point in regards to bad leadership. I was pretty much agreeing with Chief Quietwater as well as yourself that it's due to bad leadership as well as poor education. I was just telling her that Dr. Umar Johnson said that pretty much we are the only group of people that are waiting for a leader to be sent from the sky instead of actually creating those leaders. So if we create these, then we are the ones who are, putting these concepts into them so that they may continue to pass them on and be the right concepts that we need to abide by, which is just natural law.
Right.
So in regards to just self-preservation, like they're pretty much saying, no, we can't tell somebody to not defend themselves if they feel they are being, infringed upon or threatened. Like
exactly.
That's just common sense. So it seems we have been so beat over the head with statutes and these other laws that aren't, common law, these other stipulations that we neglect what actually we should be doing. It's just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
If I can just add in before you carry on, Chief Pico, we're not going to get into the boogeyman about why the internet service just went out. We're just going to look at it as a technical difficulty, right?
Correct.
We're not giving people false power, and we're not living in this realm of fear. I'm going to say whatever I want to say until the day that I'm in the ground, because I got the freedom of speech, whether you would recognize it or not. And I'm going to protect mine, whether y'all want to recognize it or not. And this mindset, this is the requirement for a nation. We're reading the requirement of how the United States government got formed, and prisoners of war just have to get on the world's frequency. You have to have defense. This idea that you're going to be calling other people to help you when your kid or it makes no sense.
Right.
That's why we're together, because we all have like minds. We just have to wake up as a group of people. It's not blasphemy. As you mentioned last week, Chief Pico, there's nothing wrong with having a God of your understanding or your personal relationship with God. But historically on planet Earth, you pray before war. And it seems like what we like to do is we like to pray and pray and pray, but we never go to war. And war doesn't have to be physical, right? It may be mental, it may be financial, it may be economic warfare, but there is warfare. And I just wanted to throw that in on that bill. That's a great sentence, because this governor is saying there's no law that we can tell you to save your life.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much.
That basic.
Pretty much. I'll go ahead and continue here. And recommendations to do it for the governor to be enacted, and it be enacted by the Honorable Robert Hunter Morris, Esquire, with the King's Royal approbation. Lieutenant Governor under the Honorable Thomas Penn and Richard Penn, Esquires, true and absolute proprietaries of the province of Pennsylvania and of the counties of Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex upon Delaware, by with by and with the advice and consent of the representatives of freemen of the said province and General Assembly met. So here it looks like where it says governor to be enacted. So it looks like they're actually passing the Militia Act, and they actually got the king's approval. So pretty much approbation, I believe that is approval. I believe I had looked that up last week just to see exactly what that meant, but that's pretty much the king's approval for them to set up a Militia Act. So just to kind of, I guess, go back on how they were reclassifying, if they still have to go and get approval from this king who is on a whole different continent in Europe, that should in itself tell us as the real Americans. They are these
Right.
citizens. They are these chartered citizens over here from Europe, and that they've pretty much been reclassifying everybody who they've pretty much come in contact with throughout this time.
You want to build on that, Chief Quietwater?
Yeah, you're right. Like they have to get approval simply because they're on foreign land, basically. So I think that pretty much sums it up pretty straight to the point.
There's one piece that we can take out of this as prisoners of war as well. Governor to be enacted and be it enacted by the Honorable Robert Hunter Morris, Esquire, right? What we can take out of this is a part of a team. If we're going to build a team, the militia, right? Like you said last week, Chief Pico, everybody has to get in their lane. Once you get your defense, once you get your people that are going to be willing to pick up arms and go wherever in that area to take care of those people, then you need the representation, which is the legal team. See, so it still goes back to everybody has to get in their lane. So here we see an Esquire with the King's Royal Approbation, Lieutenant Governor under the Honorable Thomas Penn and Richard Penn, Esquires. So you got 3 lawyers, true and absolute proprietaries of the province of Pennsylvania and of the counties of Newcastle. So everything I'm seeing here is structured. We haven't read anything in this document about a priest, a rabbi, a preacher, right?
A rapper.
Facts.
Right. It's
Rapper,
like when
entertainer.
Right.
Yeah, when it comes to the get down, these other departments are not needed, right?
Correct.
There's no reason for their Catholic priests to be here in this meeting. Because we're not talking about praying, we're talking about weapons and and so our concepts are off. We let these people in the room on any conversation. Some conversations, they don't even belong in the room.
Correct.
Right.
It's levels to this shit, be honest with you. It's levels to it, man. You look, you handle, your lane, but when it comes to this, when it comes to actual negotiations, like you said, we're not having any rappers, any priest or anything in that meeting, in the room, pretty much. This is not your lane. This is not your territory. You do what you do. We'll make sure we take care of what we need to get done. Yeah, like you said, we've too many times throughout history where having preachers, come up with these bills and everything like that. I think the last actual act or something or anything like that was pretty much passed from MLK, and that was like the Voting Act. But still, again, that's pretty much in itself a preacher,
right?
Blending the lines of who we actually should have, speaking for us in regards to any type of negotiations.
And can we add on to that, Chief Pico, for the record, because it seems like mass media in 2021 or 2020 or 2019 or the last 20 years want to neatly edit out the harsh reality about MLK. And since you just tied him into this, let's not forget, how did he get his head blown off by the United States government agent? Because he had no defense.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
He had no defense. There was no security. There was no threat from that.
Right.
You understand? So
yeah,
they like to always prop him up on his birthday, right? But then they never want to tell the other side of the story. You killed him. The government.
Right. Right.
Correct. He didn't just pass away from a heart failure. No, he was assassinated.
Right.
which is another tie to prisoner of war. Why is it that everybody who steps up out of this group, why are you either incarcerated for decades as a political prisoner, i.e. Black Panthers, or you're killed?
Right.
You even have the most recent with Grandmaster Jay from the NFAC. If I'm gonna throw that in, it's really comical how they can press charges on this man, because this man was bringing awareness to a case for Breonna Taylor, where the police had no crime scene and just conveniently walked away.
And had to recreate a crime scene.
Correct. Months later.
Right.
Create the crime scene, and here you got your Black Congressional Caucus, you got Oprah Winfrey, you got all of these people, and nobody wanted to give credit that it was the people in arms that even got the case going for Breonna Taylor.
That even got in the room, and this is a perfect example, you know, that we just went over. The proper people have to be the ones in the room to get things done in those closed doors. And I think even we, like that was a good point, you know, with Grandmaster Jay, he had the right people. He had our defense, he had lawyers, wasn't no preachers, wasn't any entertainers. They was too busy making billboards for Breonna Taylor instead of actually getting the correct team to actually, you know, make some change. So that's a great point there, Chief Alligator.
And I'll throw one more on that just to put the cherry on top. That's public information on the Instagram page where he was having direct conversation with city officials. So then after you turn around and charge the man that was bringing murder charges on behalf of the lady, and then all of your Black people have nothing to say. Your NAACP, your National Urban League, your Congressional Black Caucus, Oprah Winfrey, nobody has nothing to say. And it's like you just sit back and you just watch. And it's like, okay, we see what's going on. We see exactly what's going on.
Right. It's right there in front of our face.
Right in front of our face. These people do not work for us. And that's another issue that we're going to have to deal with as prisoners of war. You have a lot of people getting federal benefits and six-figure salaries, misrepresenting us when they go in the room, when they're supposed to be speaking on our behalf. These people have to start to become made very uncomfortable because they've gotten too accustomed to selling us out. Anybody want to build on that? Because that's the truth. I mean, if we're going to tell the truth.
I think that was the cherry on top.
Yeah. And that definitely has to be addressed. That definitely has to be addressed, because a lot of people have been in office for, like you said, 20, 30, 40 plus years. And ain't nothing changed in those 40, 20, 30 plus years. So it's like, okay, what are you doing then?
Okay.
You know, you got to update your resume, my brother. You know what I'm saying? You got to update your resume every time. You can't say, oh, I did this back in. Okay, what are you doing now for me today?
Exactly.
We see it in sports. If you have a superstar dropping 23 years ago, he ain't doing it now, you cut bait, you get rid of it. We have to do that same, we have to have that same mentality as Americans when it comes to who putting in office to represent us.
Right.
Okay, you got the water boiling, so let's go ahead and get the water bubbling off the pot. Let's just look at the Congressional Black Caucus from 1971, its inception, to 2021. That's 50 years.
Wow.
The 50th year.
50 years today. Yeah, this year.
How do we have a school to prison pipeline under their watch?
Right.
How do we have a war on drugs, which was a war against prisoners of war, on their watch?
Right.
How do we have mass incarceration, which was on their watch?
Right.
How do we have gentrification, which is on their watch? How is it that right after the 400-year milestone in the first presidential election, you did not create a Black agenda specifically for this group of people, meaning reparations? Here, the first 100 days have passed with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in office. We got nothing specific.
Right.
But then after the 100-day period, they give you a holiday, right? They all agree on a holiday, which means the people who were putting you in prisoner of war status will also get paid. But they all can't vote and agree on the reparation.
Right. Correct. And all the while other laws and bills are being passed, just dishing out money left and right. And then too, the fact that the majority of us have no clue who the Congressional Black Caucus is.
Right.
So they have definitely not made their presence in communities, on political issues that affect us on a mass scale. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Chief Pico just said it. He used an analogy of a sports team. So what we have are professional sports players, and we don't know anybody who's on the team.
Right.
You're not making any points.
That's correct. Right.
Correct. Nobody's going to the games.
Right.
Nobody's going to those games. Seriously though. But like you stated, they're not doing anything. They pop up when it's convenient for them.
Right.
And then they go back into hiding until they put up another symbolism, a tokenism thing they want to give us, like Juneteenth, like you stated, which everybody benefits off of. It's not anything strictly for Americans, specific for us. So it's like, so what are you doing? And like you said, in those 40 years, you telling me you couldn't have all the data that you needed to back up what we needed as far as reparations. And now you're trying to present a bill to study reparations, in which you should have already done the study in those past 40 years.
Right, exactly. It's horrible.
Definitely.
You want me to pick up Chief Pico?
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and highlight here. Can you see it, or
yep,
you have it pulled up? Okay.
All right. So that from and after the publication of this act, it shall and may be lawful for the freemen of this province to form themselves into companies, as hereto they have used in time of war without law. I'm gonna put it in park and turn the music up right here. So the way their legal team is writing this, now they're making it a publication of the act, right? But they were already doing this before they made a publication. It shall and may be lawful, not legal, lawful. Two different types. Lawful meaning constitution, legal, like you said earlier, Chief Pico, statute, codes, or you understand? It shall and may be lawful for the freemen of this province to form themselves into companies, as heretofore they have used in time of war without law.
So without it.
And for each company, by majority of votes in the way of ballot, to choose its own officers, to wit, a captain, lieutenant, and ensign, and present them to the governor or commander-in-chief for the time being for his approbation. And so I keep hearing structure. This structure. Who's going to be the captain? Who's going to be the lieutenant? Who's going to be the actual boots on the ground?
So they basically had everything structured and then presented it to the governor for his approval. So they already had everything in order, structure.
Correct, Chief Quietwater already had everything in order. All he needed to do was stamp and sign. Wasn't no creating it afterwards. We have a name and we gonna create everything afterwards. No, we have everything we need. We already have our structure, everything lined up. We just need your approval.
Right.
And just to add in on that, the governor has no choice but to sign, Chief Pico, because why? You got hundreds of armed men in front of you. What are you going to do? Say no?
Exactly.
You already see that what you read before. They was already doing this prior to it being in law.
Right.
So they going to do it regardless. So you might as well go ahead and make it lawful for them to do it, because they wasn't waiting on you anyway.
Now
you have to show some type of force.
So let's reverse engineer that as prisoners of war. We cannot get around this. You don't wait for your government to give you something. Something as simple as protecting your life from a rogue slave patrol. We don't need approval for that.
Right.
That's us pulling up on them, right? With legal representation from our group. Like, look, this is what we're doing.
Right.
This is what we're doing, and this is how we rocking from now on. The next time we see a video and a slave patrol decides to unload the clip in one of our kids because you got an air freshener hanging out your window, this is what's going to happen.
Correct. Yeah. And we have our legal representation to represent us, not anybody you trying to appoint or anybody like that.
Right.
Like, seriously, yeah.
And it's really this simple. I mean, it's this simple. for us to be able to do just that.
And I just want to point out also here what you said, and present them to governor or commander in chief. Again, that's that military term. So again, you need that show of force. You need that military, that those pretty much that group to defend you if you want to even get in the door with these people to even have anything become written into law.
Absolutely. We're just out of natural order. Absolutely, Pico. Yeah, we have to come out of this. This is part of recovery. We have to get our minds around the reality that you can't wait on another group of people to look out for your kids.
Right.
We see that. We've seen too many videos of murder since Mike Brown. We've seen every scenario. We've seen choked out. We've seen clips emptied in people. When you have license to quote unquote have a weapon, I mean, we've seen you eating ice cream in the house and you get shot. I mean, we've seen, well, I'll never watch it, but the knee in the neck with George Floyd. I mean, we've seen every possible scenario to come to the realization that coming to you, marching, crying, begging for you to respect our kids and our family, we're out of order.
Yeah.
Correct.
Absolutely.
I'll keep pushing. So which officers so chosen, if approved and commissioned by him, shall be the captain, lieutenant, and ensign of each company respectively, according to their commissions, and the said companies being divided into regiments by the governor or commander-in-chief. And so again, we're talking structure. They're giving responsibility. I'm not looking at the title captain, lieutenant, and ensign. There's responsibilities behind those titles.
Right.
I see certain people stepping up saying, I'll be captain, I'll be lieutenant, right? And then that group votes, yeah, we want you to be that. And then they're structuring themselves. This is what I'm taking out of this. This is a great blueprint for us to see why we lose as a group of people. We're not organized at all. At all.
On any level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll keep pushing. It shall and may be lawful for the officers so chosen and commissioned for the several companies of each regiment to meet together and by majority of votes in the way of ballot to choose a colonel, lieutenant colonel, and major for the regiment and present them to the governor or commander-in-chief for his approbation. And so again, I'm hearing structure because these are the people that are going to be communicating with the governor.
Right.
Right? The governor's not going to talk to the ensignees. He's not going to talk to the entry level. He's going to talk to colonels, lieutenants. And so they have this colony structure, right? That is that they brought over from England. And so now what they're saying is, okay, we don't have a problem with you. We can't tell you that you can't defend yourself, but let's get the structure in place. So I, as the governor, I need to know who am I going to be communicating?
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
Just putting things in their proper perspective.
And this is so easy. Why can't we do this?
Chiefs and warriors, like you said, it's levels, man. Like you said, we have too many people speaking for us that are qualified.
Exactly.
So when they do say, "Oh, this is who represented this entertainer, this rapper," well, I guess so. We gonna run him over the board. We finna do y'all dirty. We finna do y'all dirty because he don't know what he's talking about when he get in these rooms.
Right.
And as they say, power respects power.
Correct.
Power demands power. Yeah.
All right, I keep pushing. Which officers so chosen, if approved and commissioned by him, shall be the colonel, lieutenant colonel, and major of the regiment, according to their commissions, during the continuance of this act. Provided always that if the governor or commander-in-chief shall not think fit to grant his commission to any officer so first chosen and presented, it shall and may be lawful for the electors of such officer to choose two other persons in his stead and present them to the governor or commander-in-chief. And so that's like that's an ironclad clause for their militia. Because what they're saying is, let's say the governor or commander in chief says, I don't like that guy. I don't want to do business with him, right? He was dating my sister, or what. I don't like that guy. That militia has the power to say, okay, well, if you don't want to deal with him, here, we'll give you him.
Correct.
But the idea that the militia will not exist is never an option.
Right, right.
We'll just
Exactly.
appoint another. Yep.
Mhm.
And that's how it should be. You shouldn't be able to take off the head of the snake, because it should be just one person step right into it. It's multiple heads,
Right.
because you have that
Exactly.
structure.
All right. And so one of whom at his pleasure shall receive his commission and be the officer as aforesaid. Boom. So basically, once they vote and present it to the governor or commander in chief, if they don't like that guy, they get another one. Once he likes him, he's going to receive his commission, right? And be the officer. And be it further enacted by the authority aforesaid, that as soon as the said companies and regiments are formed and their officers commissioned as aforesaid, it shall and be lawful to and for the governor or commander in chief, by and with the advice and consent of the colonels, lieutenant colonels, and majors of all the regiments, being for that purpose by him called and convened, or by and with the advice and consent of a majority of the said officers, that shall be met and present together on such call. So here again, we're going back to structure. So the company and regiments are formed. What we don't even know what companies and regiments are, the majority of prisoners of war, right? Because we're talking about structure within a fighting body of our people. Most of us don't even know what a company and a regiment is, right? And their officers commissioned. It shall be and made lawful to and for the governor or commander in chief, by and with the advice and consent of the colonels and lieutenant colonels. So the colonels and lieutenant colonels have to give the consent to the commander in chief or the governor. But again, we're analyzing their structure. And then when we put the mirror up and look at our group of people, we don't even have that. We don't even have, there's no protocol here.
Correct.
Right.
No protocol amongst us. Y'all want to build off that?
I think that's, well, what you said was perfect. It also looks like they even have a checks and balances system too, because where you said here, regiments and officers, aforesaid it shall and may be lawful and to for the governor or commander in chief, and with the advice and consent. So even the commander in chief has to get consent from the colonel, lieutenant colonel, and majors, as far as, you know, them to authorize whatever is needing to be authorized. So it's not like dictatorship here. It's not like, okay, commander in chief says this, so this is what we're going to follow. The colonels have a say so, and they also are saying, okay, I agree with this or disagree.
Absolutely. And now you're talking about power. Who really has the power? The colonels and lieutenant colonel. Because the governor is just answering the phone call like, okay, what do y'all decide? What are y'all going to do? Okay, great. So it's going down in what town? Okay, let me make a phone call to the king. Hey, king, here's what I got going on in my province. I got company such and such. They're having a conflict with Americans. You understand?
Correct.
The governor's really just a liaison.
Right.
You can't tell your warlords, we're seeing power right in front of us.
Right.
Tell warlords what to do.
Exactly.
The governor's just saying, come to me kind of correct. Give me some type of person that I'm gonna communicate with, but I can't tell you what to do if one of these Americans kill your daughter.
Right. And that's how it's supposed to be. That's how it is. Not supposed to be, but that's really how it is. We're just not on that ship. And they had a very well-oiled system going. Basically, like you said, there was checks and balances, and they're telling the commander in chief, this is, like you said, what we have going on, and there's nothing that he can do about that.
Correct.
So I'll keep pushing. For that purpose, by him called and convened, or by and with the advice and consent of a majority of the said officers, that shall be met and present together on such call, to form, make, and establish articles of war for the better government of the forces that shall be under their command. Here we go back to structure. You've got your warlords. Now this is where your legal team comes in so that you can write up operating procedures, which is articles of war. How are we going to move, right?
Yeah.
Again, y'all can build on it. I just keep hearing structure. I keep hearing the lack of structure amongst our people. We got way too much talent to take the highest cost in the life realm, which is losing a loved one. Right? You can lose, like Chief Pico said, you can lose a sports game, you can lose an election. We're losing lives.
Right.
Can't come back, and we have no structure to make whatever other group of people choose to take lives of our loved ones. They need to feel that return in times 10.
Correct.
That's killing.
Right.
That stop. I'm gonna use Trayvon Martin as an example. Boom. So Trayvon Martin gets killed. What happens if the person who killed Trayvon Martin, what happens if his whole bloodline came up missing?
Yeah. Right.
That'll be the end of that.
Exactly.
It sends the frequency to other groups of people that this is what happened if you touch one of these groups of people, teenagers.
Right.
Are you willing to lose that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Y'all want to build up? I mean, maybe I'm keeping it too real.
No, that's
that's real. And we're allowing them, we're showing no force. They are telling us who we need to be following and who our leaders are and who we need to be listening to. And this basically just shows you that no, we can actually put some things together and present it to them and let them know that this is how it is moving forward. Like you mentioned before, this will happen.
right.
And that, like you said, that will kill everything moving forward.
I like what you said there, Chief. Quiet Water. Put them on notice.
Right.
Put them on notice. This isn't like you said, this isn't a plea, or we're not asking for anything. We're telling you, if this happens, this will be the repercussions going forward. Now, you can't say we didn't notify you of said repercussions. We put it here in plain sight. Now, when something happens, don't say we didn't give you that warning or that notice. We're following our procedures, our constitution from this point on, pretty much. So you can't act surprised when somebody turns up missing for something, for action that your people cause. And pretty much that's what we have to get to. That's what we have to get to, plain and simple.
Great point.
I just talk about it.
Just to add on, Chief Pico, we're talking military occupation, right? Everything you just said, by putting them on notice, Europeans will get in their feelings about the reality of us putting them on notice. Now you got to ask yourself, why would mainstream media and Europeans get offended about us telling them what's going to happen the next time we lose a loved one due to their out of control slave patrol? We think it's racism, it's military occupation, because what they're saying is, no, we don't want you guys to get organized so you can fight us.
Right.
You're supposed to suffer peacefully. You know, we're supposed to pull out the preacher and you go to the dollar store and get the posters and say no justice, no peace. We want to be able to oppress you and not have to worry about you. Now you're telling us that we have to worry about what you're going to do. No, we don't want. That's what's happening to us. They want us to remain as prisoners of war.
Right.
Unarmed people.
They want us to remain prisoners of war and docile. They want us to pretty much, like you said, they have already changed the game plan. They're still oppressing us, but they're giving us trinkets here and there. Okay, we'll let one of y'all come live with us. We'll let one of y'all come be with our women. We'll let one of y'all be a millionaire, and we'll still oppress you. We'll still beat you across the head, no matter how much your quote unquote status is. And we have to get out of that mindset of, oh, I'm not like them or anything like that. No, we are all the same. They don't care what, your quote unquote status is in life. They see American, you prisoner of war. So regardless, you ain't supposed to be over here. You was supposed to be over here in quote unquote Indian territory.
Right.
You still over here on this east side of the Mississippi River. You in the dirty South, so we gonna do you dirty, like pretty much. So we have to get out of that mindset and say, okay, no, this is what we need. We need to have that structure, like what Chief Quietwater said. Put them on notice, so now they're like, okay, no, they're getting structure. So anytime
Right.
you put a notice out, okay, no, we don't. I don't know if we
Exactly.
want to test them to see if this is going to actually be upheld. This notice, so.
Right. Exactly.
Powerful. This is powerful. I'm gonna push through one more
Okay.
sentence, or a couple more sentences. So I'm right here at Articles of War.
Right here.
Up to the right. There we go.
Gotcha.
Yep. All right. So to form, make and establish Articles of War for the better government of the forces that shall be under their command, and for bringing offenders against the same to justice, and to erect and constitute courts martial with power to hear, try, and determine any crime or offenses by such articles of war. Boom. Structure.
Mhm.
Right.
The legal team of that group of people, any group of people, this could be China, Vietnam, any group of people, this is what they do. They write up their rules to war, and when another group of people break them, you can bring the offenders against the same to justice.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening to us today. You go into their jurisdiction, and then they're talking legalese, and you're sitting here looking crazy. They're bringing you into their structure.
Their world. Right.
But
Right.
if you look at our brothers, sisters, our uncles, and aunts, going back to what Chief Pico said, that are classified in Indian territory, i.e. Cherokee, Seminole, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Creek nations, they have their own structure.
Right.
So the European can't bring what's recognized as a real American into their structure. Why? Because that nation, here we go with that word nation again, they have their own structure.
Right.
We don't have structure, so we go in everybody's jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And that's the problem we have. Let me ask y'all this question in closing. This is a great meeting today. It's not a matter of, we know what we have to do. Do you think we can do this as a group of people?
I think that we can. I think that something somewhat was started, and again, other situations happen where it couldn't come to full to a full come to fruition. But I definitely think that we can as a people. But I think more people have to get the information like this to understand that, hey, y'all, this is not rocket science. This can be done. It has been done, and this is our right. This is our right to do these things. So I think that the basis of most of this, and for the disorganization of us, is the lack of knowledge, the lack of us knowing that this is in writing, in black and white, and it can be done. So to answer your question, 100%, yes, I think we can do it.
I have to agree with Chief Quietwater. She laid it out on the table, like this is the blueprint. They're
Right.
showing us exactly how they did it, and pretty much giving us everything we need to pretty much do the same thing. I believe it is a thought of like knowledge that needs to be spread out to the people, but also
Right.
like just we need workers. We need people that's going to do the work. Like in that Dr. Woodson quote, we have a lot of leaders, but not enough
Right.
people willing to do the work, or a lot of chiefs and not enough Indians. Like everybody's trying to do their own thing, but we need to come together to just make sure that, okay, these are our procedures. If something happens, then this is what we're going to do, and just go about it that way. It definitely can be done, but we need to have that warrior spirit in order to make sure that, we see it to fruition.
And I think the fact that like we're doing, citing to actual documents and not published books that other people have put their own narrative spin on it.
Correct.
I think just going back to original documents is something that we need to be more acclimated with as Americans.
Great points, everybody. In closing, what we're really looking at is complete dominance by another group of people, right?
Right.
And so the pushback is always going to be like, let's just use what we are for an example here. They have structures. The first structure is the militia. The second structure is slave patrol. The third structure is the National Guard. The fourth structure would be the actual military branches. And so what this group of people are saying is, hey, we'll tweak our regulations of how we pull up on you, but we don't want you to get your own.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what they're saying. That's really what they're telling us.
And no, that's a good point, because like, again, we're still asking for them to make an adjustment instead of adjusting it ourselves.
Right.
Like, we're asking for police reform. We're asking for these different things instead of creating our own and then saying this is our jurisdiction, because that's all you need to say. Okay, don't cross this line. This is our jurisdiction, our territory, speaking their language. So anything that happens in this thing, we are going to handle. If you come in this causing trouble, this is the notice that, okay, if anything happens, we are not held liable. We already put you on notice that this is not, it's no fly zone. Just put it in, our terms as far as our people know. No fly zone. If you want to come, you got to call, check in. We do it to our own people, but we won't do it to these Europeans, these other races of people, which is mind-boggling. We want to flex against ourselves, but not against the people that are actually, we're saying that are oppressing us or keeping us in these, predicaments.
We can close on what you just said, Chief Pico. No fly zone. That's it. Yeah, put the tax on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be back next week for week 4. Again, we apologize for the technical difficulty earlier. We'll call it just that, a technical difficulty, but nothing stops. Anybody want to do the American Inventor next week?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. I can do either one. It doesn't matter. I can do the steps, or I can do the quote and the legal definition. It's up to you, Chief Pico.
I'll go ahead and take the steps. The 13 week steps.
Okay, and I'll do the Dr. Carter G. Woodson quote, as well as the legal definitions and worst case scenario, maroon historical points.
Okay. All right.